Okay, let's dive right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're embarking on a pretty incredible journey, and it's a deeply personal one for anyone navigating the daily tightrope of type 2 diabetes. Picture this: your whole daily routine revolves around this constant, sometimes exhausting battle of carefully monitoring your carbs and sugar intake. Common sense tells you to run far, far away from dried fruits, right? But what if a remarkably sweet, sticky fruit, one that is literally over 60% pure sugar, could actually serve as a natural dietary supplement to give you sweet relief? We're talking about dates. Yep, dates. I know, it sounds like a totally impossible contradiction in the fight to reclaim your diet, doesn't it?
So, this is the fascinating medical mystery we're unpacking today. For so many folks who are just completely tired of relying solely on harsh, synthetic solutions that really drain their quality of life, finding natural relief feels like the ultimate goal. And the scientific research we're looking at reveals a completely different story from what you might expect. It turns out that dates, and specifically natural date extracts, contain these incredible bioactive compounds. When you integrate them correctly into a conscious diet, they can actually act as targeted dietary tools to manage blood sugar, entirely without those notorious synthetic side effects. This is really a story about how powerful natural dietary supplements can be reclaimed and used in our everyday lives.
Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the sweet paradox, the glycemic load difference, date extract as a natural supplement, the clinical evidence, choosing the right date, and we'll wrap up with safe snacking strategies. All right, let's start with section 1, the sweet paradox. Now, basic logic dictates that a carb-dense, incredibly sweet fruit would be a terrible choice for anyone managing insulin resistance. But as you know, human digestion isn't just simple math. It is a highly complex chemical process. When you're managing diabetes, you might think you literally have to avoid all sugar, period. However, the secret weapon in our natural management story really lies in how we measure absorption. While the glycemic index measures the raw speed of sugar absorption, the glycemic load is our actual practical metric for everyday life. Why? Well, because it factors in the actual portion size you're eating. A food might have the potential to absorb super fast, but if you're only eating a tiny managed amount of carbohydrates, the overall load on your bloodstream remains beautifully minimal. And that brings us to a really important number 15. If you sit down and eat a snack of 1.5 dried medjool dates, you're getting a glycemic load of 15. That categorizes it firmly as a medium glycemic impact. Now, you might be wondering, why doesn't it just send your blood sugar completely through the roof? Because those dates contain nearly 2 grams of dense natural fiber. And in our story today, we shouldn't just think of fiber as some basic nutrient. We actually need to frame that fiber as the very first active ingredient in this natural dietary supplement package. That fiber acts as a metabolic brake. It physically slows down digestion in your gut and prevents that sudden dangerous spike in your bloodstream, which gives your body the time it desperately needs to gracefully process the energy.
Moving right along to section 2, date extract, a natural supplement.
Let's move into the biochemistry of how this builds into something even more remarkable. We're shifting from basic nutrition to the microscopic level now, specifically looking at how bioactive compounds in date extract interact directly with your digestive system. I want you to think of your digestive enzymes like microscopic chemical scissors. When you eat carbs, 2 specific enzymes get right to work. First, pancreatic alpha amylase chops down complex dietary starches into smaller chains. Then, intestinal alpha-glucosidase comes in and snips those smaller chains into free glucose molecules, which are immediately absorbed into your blood. Now, if you want to stop a blood sugar spike, you have to temporarily dull these scissors. Take a second to really visualize that gut biochemistry at work, literally millions of these tiny enzymes breaking down food every single second. And this brings us to a stark contrast in our patient's journey, really highlighting the difference between pharmaceutical interventions and natural supplements. You see, synthetic diabetes drugs like acarbose are highly aggressive. They non-selectively block both of those enzymes we just talked about. For a diabetic patient, this often means severe flatulence, diarrhea, and bloating, mostly because large amounts of undigested starches travel straight down into the colon where bacteria just relentlessly ferment them. It is an incredibly uncomfortable reality that robs a lot of people of their quality of life. Date extracts, on the other hand, step in as a true hero here, offering a targeted, balanced alternative that actually gives patients their comfort back. Check out this crucial number, 54%. Research actually shows that natural date extract strongly inhibits the final step, that intestinal alpha-glucosidase, by a massive 54%. But here is the absolute magic part. It only mildly inhibits the first step, alpha amylase, by about 6 to 24%. So what does this mean for you?
It means it effectively slows down the final release of glucose into your bloodstream, but without leaving giant, painful blocks of starch to ferment in your gut. You get that absolutely vital blood sugar control entirely without the severe digestive distress. And the clinical data demonstrates this inhibitory effect perfectly. The extract acts as a natural, targeted barrier right there at the intestinal wall. It's honestly just a beautiful example of how functional foods can mimic and sometimes even improve upon the targeted benefits of medicine when we truly understand how to use them.
Which leads us to Section 3, the clinical evidence. Because, let's be real, test tube biochemistry is one thing, real life is a completely different story. What actually happens when a human being, someone actively fighting to manage their condition, uses dates as a daily natural supplement? To answer that climax of our story, researchers conducted a really robust, randomized clinical trial. They took 79 individuals managing type 2 diabetes and split them up into groups. One group was told to eat 60 grams of dates daily. That's roughly 2 standard dates split into mid-morning and mid-afternoon snacks. They did this every single day for 12 straight weeks. Meanwhile, the control group ate an equivalent glycemic load of raisins instead. And the results? Honestly, they were incredibly reassuring. After 12 weeks of daily date consumption, the researchers observed absolutely zero adverse effects on the patient's HbA1c levels, their fasting blood glucose, or their lipid profiles. Eating roughly 2 dates a day did not worsen their glycemic control at all. For an audience actively managing a chronic condition, the peace of mind that a natural supplement is genuinely safe is profound. It basically confirmed exactly what the biochemistry suggested. When portions are carefully managed, dates are a wonderfully safe inclusion for diabetics.
All right, Section 4, choosing the right date.
So let's take all this science into the grocery store aisle. You're going to see a pretty wide variety out there, but let's compare the 2 most common ones you'll encounter, because spoiler alert, they are definitely not all created equal. On one side, we have the medjool date. Often called the king of dates, it's large, it's incredibly soft and syrupy, and it packs about 16 grams of sugar per date with a glycemic index of 55.3. On the exact opposite side, we have the deglet nor. These guys are much smaller, they're firmer, and significantly less sweet, containing only about 4.5 grams of sugar per date with a lower glycemic index of 46. So, your golden rule of thumb to remember is basically this. Eating just one single medjool date gives you roughly the same amount of sugar as eating 3 deglet nor dates. If you're someone who really struggles with rapid glucose spikes and you're actively trying to reclaim control, swapping out a giant medjool for a smaller deglet nor can literally make a world of difference in your daily dietary management.
And finally, Section 5, safe snacking strategies.
So how do we synthesize all this clinical trial data and enzyme biochemistry into a simple, actionable blueprint for your daily life? Well, here is your strategy for enjoying dates safely as part of your natural management routine. First up, strict portion control is absolutely non-negotiable. You've got to limit your intake to 1 to 3 dates per day. Second, and honestly this is a fantastic trick, never eat them completely alone. Pair your dates with healthy fats or protein. Think a handful of walnuts or maybe a smear of almond butter. Those healthy fats act synergistically with the date's natural fiber as a complete dietary supplement package, slowing down carbohydrate digestion and smoothing out your blood sugar curve even more. Third, if you know you're highly sensitive to sugar, just steer clear of those massive medjool dates and stick to the smaller varieties. And finally, everybody's body is different, so always monitor your personal blood sugar response using your own glucose meter. It really makes you think, doesn't it? We spend so much of our time looking for complex pharmaceutical answers. Yet here is a completely natural fruit, packed with fiber and enzyme-inhibiting extracts, that has just been growing on palm trees for thousands of years. By understanding the science of glycemic loads and functional foods, we can unlock natural dietary supplements that genuinely support our metabolic health and help give us our lives back. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope this leaves you eager to rethink what's sitting right there in your fruit bowl.